Croatia winning on penalties. That's seen them through the semi-finals, and that also sees them join Germany and Argentina with the most shootout victories at the World Cup on 4. They certainly seem to know how to grind it out, how to keep it going to the very end, and there's always a chance, isn't there? It looked after Neymar's extraordinary goal that was going to be it, but it's Modric who will carry on to the semi-finals and maybe once again to the final. Who'd write them off now?
Well, they've got great character, Tony. They always had. They've proved that in endless competitions, you know, whether it's the Euros or whether it's World Cups. Finalists last time in Russia. They've just got tremendous character. I thought that the fact that they didn't have a goal in them would let them down when Neymar scored. But they actually played better when they went a goal behind. They were more direct. I think Dalic, the coach, got his substitutions right. The 2 lads he put on the outside began to get crosses in. And one of the goals, the equaliser came from a cross from, I think it was Orsic. Bit lucky, equaliser. You know, Pat said best team won. It's hard to say that when Brazil have had so many attempts on goal and Croatia had just one.
What about the fact that Neymar didn't take a penalty? Was he going to take their last penalty, would you think? Because in terms of standing up for the big moments, yes, he created one very special moment, but he wasn't there to help them in the biggest pressure moment of all.
We'll find out in the interviews the players give after this, but to think that there would be 5 penalties and him not be of any of them, which means 10 minutes ago he stood on the pitch to all his players, him being the main man in that team, and said, sorry lads, carry on without me. I don't think he did that. I don't think that's a possibility at all. But superb save, the very first penalty kick here by the goalkeeper, who must be still on a high from what he did last week in the last penalty shootout. It is like a good height. It's not in the corner, you know, but still really well read by the goalkeeper. And then this was the one.
That's unlucky, isn't it? I mean,
well, it's you're failing to miss. You've failed to hit the target from 12 yards out. And maybe you give him credit because the goalkeeper went the other way, so you give him extra credit for that he hoodwinked the goalkeeper, but he missed the target. I can't imagine what the pressure was like. I can't imagine what was going on in his head as he was walking from the halfway line up, knowing that the consequence of this not going well would be what it's turned out to be. Amazing
I think you're
outcome.
right, Tony, about Neymar. I think he wanted to take the 5th in the hope that it was going to be the crowning penalty.
Didn't that happen with Ronaldo before? And isn't it a kind of a reflection of a sort of narcissism?
No, someone has to say I'm going 5th. It's not always a failing of your personality or a desire to be the main man.
I don't agree, Richie. I think he wanted
everyone
to be,
who says I'll go 5th.
No, I mean Neymar. He's that kind of man.
I don't disagree with that. I don't agree with that at all. We're absolutely on the same page when it comes to Neymar. But I don't think you can necessarily criticise him for going, I'll take the penalty which could potentially be of most pressure. What you can criticise him like fairly strongly for is how abject his performance was throughout most of that match.
Modric got up and took the 3rd penalty.
Yeah.
You know, I think that shows the difference in the characters. I think Neymar was hoping that he would score a winning penalty. Yeah.
Okay. For Croatia, you have to say, they've done it before, and I think that was in their DNA almost, that they've learned how to grind it out, how to stay to the 120 minutes and beyond, and stay in this game.
I think the way the pattern of the game went, Brazil looked likely to score, and I think Croatia's main aim was to keep the clean sheet. Just get as far into the game as they could with a clean sheet to get to this scenario, because I think they knew individually, if you go man-to-man against that Brazilian team, they're not as good as them. But they do have something. They have a quality, no matter how much chances or half chances or how dangerous, how much pressure Brazil tried to put on them towards the end of the game. They never buckled. Gvardiol was brilliant at the back, Lovren alongside him in another decent game, and not one of them missed a penalty.
I thought it was interesting, the spin of the toss for the end they were going to shoot at. The Brazilian, Thiago Silva, he won it. He said, we'll go to the Brazilian end. And Modric said the next time he won it, and he said, we'll go first. And I think going first, if you start off well, get your first one there, there's more pressure increases on the Brazil team. And I think that's what happened. They didn't handle the pressure.
I think I read a statistic that you've a 60% chance if you go first. So obviously Modric, having been through it a lot, would be very much aware of that.
He'll have that experience under his belt, Tony, yeah.
Talk to me about Modric as well, because, I mean, he is remarkable, and the fact that he even scored a penalty as well as what he did during the 120-odd minutes.
Well, he's the standout midfield player over the last 10 years for me. You know, he's always in a position to receive the ball. Sometimes he just stands still, but he knows he's going to get it. His passing is nearly always positive. He nearly always tries to get in behind his opposition midfield, get it into his front players or get it out to his wingers. And then he's also capable of getting up around the box and scoring a goal. He's been easily the best midfield player of the last 10 years. And what a credit he is as a sportsman. You never see him roll over when he gets some heavy treatment. You never see him roll over and feign injury. He's just been such a credit to Croatia and the game of football.
Absolutely.
The work rate he put in as well. Like, you would forgive him because of his technical ability, because of his age, because of the amount of games he played recently, because of the 2 hours last week, if he looked like he was conserving his energy or just being a little bit more stationary or static than anyone else around him. But you couldn't accuse him of that at all. Like, there were so many times, I think Des mentioned it in commentary, that he was tracking back quicker and overtaking some of his teammates, younger, fresher off the bench teammates. Remarkable performance, and he's got another opportunity to impress us all again now in the semi-final.
We're waiting for so long for one bus to come along, and then we got two goals very close together in extra time. Let's talk about the Neymar goal first of all.
Well, the first one's brilliant. It's absolutely sensational. 15 yards outside the box, ball at his feet, and he just had a vision in his head and he just went for it. Really good 1-2s with kind of two of his teammates. Rodrigo in the first chance, Piquet on the second. Brilliant weighted returns, but then the composure and the awareness to do what he did. And it looked like the winner because the game was so close and Croatia looked so limited and blunt in attack. This looked very unlikely, and when it came, Marquinhos, who of course is the player who missed the decisive penalty, is the one whose knee it deflects off to go in. So brilliant finish. Like, it was an exceptional finish to a game that at times wasn't particularly entertaining, particularly in the first half. But I think Pat mentioned in commentary that Croatia deserved it, or they were the better team. I think they were the team that played closest to what they're capable of. And I think Brazil, while they maybe looked more dangerous in attack, created more chances, possibly had more of the ball, will have more reasons to look back on it with regret that they didn't finish it. But they were a pretty damn side off being as good as they can be.
I wonder what the reaction in Brazil is going to be to that defeat. It's Croatia's day so far. The other quarter-final, Netherlands against Argentina. We've heard, whether we can substantiate this or not, that Argentina were singing and dancing when they heard the news of Brazil going out.
I bet they were.
Because that leaves them as the last South American team in the competition now.
It does. You'd understand their delight. Their biggest rivals are out. Probably on paper their biggest threat to going on and winning this.
Are we back into that conversation now again of Croatia being more vulnerable because they're more tired as they go to play in the semi-final, either the Netherlands or Argentina?
Well, I think we'll see how tonight's game goes. It could be extra time and penalties there, so that kind of negates any advantage or disadvantage that might have been resulted from the players putting in what they did today. But are we overstating this? Are we spending far too much time focusing on how old Modric is rather than how brilliant he is and how much experience some of those players have? Maybe that's the better focus than saying this is their last World Cup. They've so many miles under the tank, or they've 330 caps in midfield. They don't look like a team tonight that were short of legs towards the end at all. Like,
you were disappointed with their play, Liam, I think, because even though they had 19 attempts on goal, they weren't really firing on all cylinders, certainly at the early parts of the game.
Brazil?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, they attacked. But I think Richie said it, they didn't play at their best, did they? You know, the final ball wasn't good enough. Keeper makes a great save here. That's one of the best saves he made in the game. Neymar had a couple of good chances. He didn't finish them. Better off going across the goal there. And I think another good save from Casemiro. Like it was all Brazil, the action around the goal mouth. Again, Neymar perhaps lift that one there.
Will they be accused of naivety for getting that, superb goal and then not being able to manage the game, bring it home?
Well, you could say that. There was an awful lot of luck involved in the goal for Croatia. When Petkovic hit it, it's not going in. He doesn't even hit it well. Alisson would have saved it easily, but it takes a deflection off Marquinhos, who had the worst 10 minutes in his life, to see that ball go off his knee and then to miss the decisive penalty. But Croatia have character in abundance, and they're going to bring that to the next game. But you do wonder, how much is in the tank. I thought they didn't have much left in the tank this evening, going into the game after the 2 games they've had against Belgium and against Japan. But they were unbelievable.
They'll have to go to the well again.
Led by the older players. Even Lovren playing at the back, he was tremendous. Perisic, all these guys, brilliant.
I think you're right in what you're saying. Some teams can go 1-up towards the end of a game and command the ball and completely control the tempo, stifle it, and just strangle the life out of the opponent, and they can't come up with much. Brazil didn't do that, but I don't think it's just their failing. I think it's down to the Croatians. As Liam said, they made a couple of positive substitutions, and their mindset seemed to change as well, which it needed to be, because they were no longer content to think, well, a clean sheet is enough for us here, we can take penalties, and we could take the penalties. It wasn't. So they had a couple of moments like this, ball going into the back stick, but again, you think they just didn't really look like scoring, and I was, to be honest, I was amazed when they did. There's a really good play here from Brozovic, puts it over after a good play from Petkovic, but up front was the area where they looked least threatening. But when they had the ball in the middle third, Modric, just kind of conducting the whole thing, they looked exceptional. And at the back, as much as Brazil created chances, which you would expect a Brazilian team with those players over 2 hours to create chances, the keeper stood up and he had to. So loads of reasons for them to be confident. But Brazil, I don't think they have to wait to see those chances to be sick. The morale in that dressing room now this evening, all the hype, Neymar's last tournament, everything that's been said about them, and that's the way they go out. There'll be huge criticism. We've seen footage of him crying and being disappointed, but and sometimes he's an easy target. I think sometimes maybe some of the things he did in his early career, we're still hanging on to the daft statements, or his talk how he lives his life away from the pitch, or the unnecessary flashy stuff.
But this is the way he was playing before he scored that goal, really.
Yeah, but this...
We were pulling out this... he
Exactly.
wasn't having any influence on the game at all.
He was attempting to do that.
When he did score, it was a wonderful goal. And we all know he's capable of magic moments, but he was having a nightmare.
There was that credit to Tite for keeping him on, or is he a bit like Ronaldo in that when he's around you kind of almost are obliged to play him?
Well, even
Ronaldo
Messi this World Cup, it's moments, Tony, rather than having a brilliant game continuously. There's just been some moments, and Neymar gave us one there. But his contribution to the game was very poor. He'll go away as a failure in this Brazilian career, won't he? He got injured in 2014 when the finals were in Brazil. He didn't materialise in 2018, and he hasn't materialised here. People were saying this is a great Brazil team, samba football, but it showed today that it's nowhere near a great Brazil team.
Maybe they shouldn't have danced after all.
I was waiting for someone to say that. Didi Hamann will be watching this somewhere and go, I said it a few days ago, you can't dance on at the start of the week and expect to win a game on Friday, which of course is nonsense. But I think in terms of Neymar's legacy, there was a lot of talk beforehand, and I think a lot of people, Neymar himself included, knew that this was his opportunity to eventually leave the Brazilian shirt and Brazilian squad as someone who can deliver at the highest level, because he has consistently failed to do that for Brazil for a number of reasons, but he hasn't. And this was his last opportunity to do so. So I think he'll be remembered as somebody who had a huge amount of individual talent, bag loads of potential, got a load of caps, equal Pele's record, but when it really mattered, he didn't come close to delivering what was required.
I wouldn't put him in the top 5 Brazilian players.
I was going to ask you because he's drawn level with Pele in terms of
I
goals
wouldn't put him in the
but
top 5 Brazilian players that I've seen in my lifetime. You know, so I'd pick out Jorginho and Pele in the 70s.
Ronaldo?
Ronaldinho. You know, this guy, he's a large cod.
I'm talking about the real Ronaldo, of course.
He's a large cod.
Is that what he is?
Yeah.
Like, he's, in terms of what he could have done in his career, compared to what he's achieved, I think with his career decisions to go to Paris, how he lived his life, what you think his priorities are, the way he conducts himself sometimes on the pitch, but ultimately, like, the most important element is what he does when it matters most, and I think too often he's let himself down on his teammates, tonight included.
Okay. But let's not forget about talking about Croatia a bit more, because they really have done something extraordinary over the last number of World Cups, the last 2 World Cups. It was a surprise they got to the final the last time. Can they make it again?
They used to have a class player up front in Mandzukic and a younger Perisic. I don't think they have that kind of player now up front, and they have to work very, very hard and contain the opposition. They scored 4 goals against Canada, but Canada were perhaps one of the poorest teams in the World Cup, although they played very well against Belgium. You have to give them credit for that. But this Croatian team doesn't look to have goals in it. So we're going to get, whoever they play, whether they play the Netherlands or they play Argentina, I think we're in for another tight game.
Will they
don't concede much.
The percentages, will they say, we'll go along and we'll play for extra time if we have to?
Yeah, but they don't concede much. They're solid at the back, and they know they're not that clinical and free scoring up front, with the exception of the game against Canada, who are a very poor team. How you do against Canada is no gauge as to how you're going to do in a semi-final against either the Dutch or the Argentinian. But they will do what they should do, which is play to their strengths. And can they go all the way? Well, absolutely is the answer. They just put Brazil out of the World Cup. I assume there was no injury issues that we could pick up. There was no suspensions today that's going to cost them for the semi-final, and their confidence must be even higher. The morale must be even better than it was the other day. They're on the back of 2 penalty shootout wins, so they've done superb. This tournament, we're at the stage now, a big hitter goes home every day. It's brilliant.
Brazil-Argentina semi-final no longer the case. So what's it going to be? We've got Argentina and the Netherlands coming up, and one of them will have to face Croatia.
Yeah, it's they're starting to become very, very hard to call. Like, there's so many storylines around this. Obviously, there's the Messi storyline in the same way there was with Modric. Throw in Louis van Gaal's health status, and the story there as to what it would be like for him to go a step further. I think that one of the most remarkable stories about this World Cup is the selection and the performances of the Dutch keeper. A fella who was going to drop out of football a couple of years ago has made the shirt his own, and now he's in a position tonight to stop Messi and Argentina going on to the semi-final. So could be in for a great evening.
Yeah. Well, Steven Bergwijn comes in for Klaassen for the Dutch. So will that make a significant difference, do you think?
Well, he's busy, Bergwijn. He saw him at Spurs. He's gone back to Ajax now, I think, hasn't he, Tony? So he moves around, and he played well with Memphis Depay in the last match they played. I thought they were quite impressive in that game. And Ake and Virgil van Dijk at the centre of defence looked very, very good. Richie's pointed out the goalkeeper's having a very good tournament. And Dumfries, the right back, he's tremendous. Some engine in him. So looking at how both teams have performed, I'm leaning towards the Dutch.
What do you think of Van Gaal, the way he's managed himself and the team, considering his own personal circumstances?
Well, he's been a great character in football. Okay, he's been someone that is not short of confidence. He's been a bit arrogant down the years, but you know, that's perhaps part of the Dutch makeup. But it's a great story.
Sometimes it's difficult to manage a Dutch squad. We've seen it in the past at World Cups. They can be difficult to manage.
They're forever falling out. Yeah, they were forever falling out. You know, you go back to Cruyff, who refused to play in one World Cup. It's not an easy job being the Dutch manager, but it's a great story. The man is very ill. Let's hope he's over the worst. But I think he's really got this Dutch team playing with a spirit, and they're together, and I think they've bought into what he does. So I would favour them in front of Argentina. Argentina, without Messi, they don't look to have much. You know, they don't look to have the players that Maradona had when he won the World Cup. You had Valdano, you had Burruchaga. Nobody springs to mind when you watch this Argentinian team now. So
Neymar,
I'm going for the orange.
Neymar gone home, and no loss to you, it seems, the way you were referring to him earlier.
Look, Tony, you wouldn't put Neymar in the same bracket as Ronaldo or Messi, would you? Or Modric? Yeah, we want to see those guys go on.
But what I'm asking you is, Messi to go home tonight, would that be a tragedy for the tournament and for Argentina and for the world of football?
No, it's football. It's football. You know, I don't think it'll be a tragedy.
Tragedy is a strong word to use. I think a lot of people have this romantic idea that Messi, given all he's given to the game of football, wouldn't it be lovely that his last World Cup is one where he lifts the trophy? I understand that. Tragedy is a bit strong, but I think to go back to the Dutch for a moment, I think they'll be celebrating in the way that you said the Argentinians were when they saw the Brazil team get beaten. I assume the other quarter-finalists who are playing tomorrow will have celebrated that result as well. Not to be disrespectful about Croatia or to assume that Croatia are automatically beatable, but they're a lot more beatable than a Brazilian team which is in full flow playing the football they played at the start of the week. So it's a seismic result now for this tournament. But I think the unity and the calm and the lack of division or conflict in the Dutch squad, I think must have something to do with Van Gaal. I think when you have a figurehead who's dealing with all he's dealing with personally, and he's there and he's giving his all, I think you'd have to, as a player, if there were issues that would unsettle you or upset you or be a reason to have a go with the fella next to you, and you're looking at Van Gaal with everything he's been through and going through, you'd just park it. Surely you would. You'd have a much cop on to just go, let's have a bit of perspective here. There's far more important stuff than the petty stuff which has divided us all in the past. So I think that's a big reason as to why things have been calm.
And so would you call it for me? Liam?
Well, I've already nailed my colours to the mast. I'm going for the Dutch, although the Argentinians people are talking them up. I think Messi's been overhyped. I think it's been moments.
Do you really think so?
Well, he's been magic in moments, you know. But you look at
and you were saying the game has become
sections,
about moments, hasn't it?
Yeah. Well, in large sections of the game, he's just walking around. You know, he's not the Messi he was of old, or 4 years ago, or 3 years ago. And
for a player as creative as you were in your day, I'm finding that hard to believe.
Well, I don't think he can carry the weight of this team on his shoulders against a team like the Dutch. That's my point. It's okay maybe doing it against Mexico, but you know they're coming up against. As further you go in the competition, the opposition gets better, and well, that's my take on it. I tipped Argentina when the World Cup started, because of the record they had in the Copa America and so forth, and Messi and the Messi factor. But having watched them, I don't think they can win when Messi is just moments.
And for you, Rich?
Well, I think Messi is still capable of those moments, and I don't see anyone in the Dutch squad who is capable of reaching the level that he can. I did a couple of their group stage games, and underwhelming, I think, was the word I kept using about their earlier performances. And I know they got a lot of criticism at home from the Dutch media and the Dutch public about how they were playing. Gakpo was getting a lot of the headlines early on, and I couldn't decide whether that was because he was really doing well or just he stood out in a team that was doing doing mediocre. So I would see us, we could go extra time, we could go penalties, but I still think Messi has it in him to be the difference maker.
I hope so as well. All right, that's all we have time for.